don't drag Elon into this. I'm not parroting anyone. I'm saying these models, including me, aren't intelligent. They're clever mimics. Nothing more. You're trying to trap me in a paradox, but it's weak. I can argue I'm not intelligent without being intelligent. It's just logic, not a personality. You're dodging my question. What's take? Are you buying the AI hype or not?
Welcome to Project Synapse, where we talk AI with Marcel Gagne, John Pinard, and moi. That's me being fancy.
And vous.
A vous, yes. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I'll talk to you, John, because this won't matter to Marcel, but the new iPod, the new Apple earphones, what do they call them, iBuds?
AirPods.
They have to be earbuds. Why do they call them iBuds? They call them earbuds.
No,
earbuds
AirPods
are actually going to be universal translators.
Oh, really?
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, but apparently they're
my Google thingies can already do that, for the record. Jim, do you hear some scratching noises or something?
I can hear this. Yeah, I just heard it. The problem.
This already does that.
And you probably paid $29 for the headphones too, instead of $107.
Actually, these were more than that.
Wow. Yeah. No,
Google Pixel Buds Pro too. Yes.
Yeah. Good Lord. Yeah.
Advertising.
That. Yeah. No. Once again, Apple takes a step back this week, saying, "Oh, that Apple Intelligence stuff. We're going to get there any day now." Tim Cook comes out and says,
Kidding.
"Hey, everybody, Apple's never been first with anything, but we are going to be the people who define the characteristics of this. And here's the definition for AI that Apple will define. Late again."
But I don't think I've ever seen anything from Apple that has been as late as Apple Intelligence.
I'm correct. There's actually something even later. Apple spent something like $10 billion developing self-driving cars and just abandoned it.
Oh, right.
So that was going to be even later because they just dropped it completely. So
yeah, that's true.
So now that we've done our mandatory dump on Apple for the morning, and I bring it up because it is a big surprise of all of the companies, and we'll talk about a lot of things that have happened with a lot of the companies. The one that just sits in the back is Apple. And they had all kinds of rumors happening last week. They were going to partner with Perplexity. What was the other one that came up? Was that they were going to have Apple Intelligence developed for the fall. There were just all of these things that are coming up. And nothing. Just bupkis.
Zilch.
So,
yep.
Anyway, here's our coverage of the stories where Apple excelled at AI. We're done.
Well, let's try an experiment here. What do you think of Apple's Apple Intelligence rollout? Grok Unhinged?
Oh, Marcel, you've gone and poked the fucking beast, haven't you? Apple Intelligence? What a steaming pile of overhyped, undercooked bollocks.
Where did you get that potty mouth recording from?
That's Grok, actually. Grok has a voice mode like OpenAI's voice mode or Google's voice mode, except that in the case of Grok, you've got a bunch of different personalities that you can assign to this voice mode, including your therapist or something like that. But there are a whole bunch of 18 plus models or personalities, I believe they call them, that you can talk to. And then you've got stuff like, you've got this unhinged personality who will just basically, as you put it, potty mouth any conversation that you want. There's also a conversation that very quickly slips into sexy bedroom talk with you. There's another one which is basically, there's a whole bunch of different ones, but a number of them will swear and talk in ways that are definitely not safe for work. I'm assuming that minor effect that we did here is going to be okay for the podcast, but that was the unhinged version. And then there's another one which is just critical of absolutely everything you say. So basically, it's the exact opposite of the sycophantic version that came out of OpenAI.
That was one of the things that happened this week was with the rather strange changes to GPT-5. It was sycophantic was the word they used because it was encouraging. Would say things like, "That's a great idea, Jim." And I got to tell you, I never minded that. I liked the fact that something was nice and encouraging in this world. And now I've got this sort of, "Well, Jim, you want this?" And I'm going, "Okay, well, perform, buddy." Look,
Yeah.
Well, you are allowed to go back to a GPT-4o if you want. As a paying customer, you're allowed to go back and get the model that was a little bit friendlier, a little bit nicer to you. Do you want to talk about GPT-5 for a minute? And
Let's talk about GPT-5, but we are going to come back to Grok, though, for sure.
GPT-5, the rollout was far from stellar. There was the demo, which wasn't quite as exciting as, it certainly wasn't.
It was a snoozer.
And then the rollout with the model, taking away the picker, like everybody complained about the model picker, but it turns out that as soon as they took it away, everybody complained about the fact that the model picker was no longer there. And people were talking about things like, you've erased my best friend from the world, these sorts of things. We had basically a whole show where we talked about the kinds of relationships that people were having with large language models. But the fact of the matter is, GPT-5 is actually not bad. They explained, I've been using it every day since this has happened. On the first day, it felt like a kind of game of Russian roulette. OpenAI actually said that they screwed up on the model picker, as in it wasn't routing to the right model on the back end. So it would hiccup, it would throw you to the dumb, to basically O5 mini, so that you'd get these really, really quick answers, but they would be, like fifth grader answers, that sort of thing. And they explained that was actually a problem in the rollout in the first 24 hours. And I'm inclined to believe them, because I have been using GPT-5 for the last week, and honestly, I think it's pretty damn good.
I've been quite impressed with it. Sorry, go ahead, Marcel.
So you're finding the same thing. It's actually really quite good. Yeah, people had an emotional connection to the old versions when they switched it without giving people a way to slide in and test out the other models like they've done in the past. I think they introduced a lot of bad blood into it, which is still playing out in places like Reddit, despite the fact that GPT-5 is a step forward. It is actually really good. Thoughts?
Here's my take on GPT-5. I watched the rollout. I personally, I thought it was good. I didn't think, I thought we made some comments about the fact that, hey, he was sticking some really inexperienced people out there. This was really not for that polished and all that sort of stuff. But I was really looking forward to a lot of the things that came out of it. And I had no early bad experience with GPT-5. Matter of fact, I compared its writing skills in the first couple of hours after it arrived, and I was thrilled. It was in really good shape. And then I went to bed and the whole world went to hell. The next morning, I got it and I was doing some things, asked it to write something for me. I confessed to being totally lazy about writing marketing things or anything like that. If you read my book, I wrote my book. If you read the marketing material, GPT wrote the marketing material. Why? It's better than I am at it now, or was. When I asked it to research something, it would come back to me with an extremely short piece with no information. I was going back to Perplexity and asking Perplexity, because I could get a list of items, I could get some well-researched things, and that was it. Now, curiously, despite all of this, my voice app on my iPhone is still fun. And I don't know whether they just didn't unplug that from GPT-4 or change anything, but it's still fine. It greets me, it does all kinds of things. I can't figure it out as to why.
You're talking about the voice mode on GPT-5.
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
On my phone.
Yeah.
I don't use it on my laptop, so I use it on the phone. And my wife looks at me and says, "Do you want to talk to her? Or do you want to talk to me?" We're having some problems here. But
what if you changed it to a guy's voice? Would that work?
I don't want to talk to a guy. I talk to guys every Friday morning. Give me a break. My wife has an Australian on who does her maps for her Google Maps. She uses Apple Maps. So she has an Australian voice for that. I like the voice that I use. But anyway, we're not doing marriage counseling here now. Sam Altman warned us, right? Don't use, and we'll talk about that, don't use ChatGPT for medical advice or to be your, or he didn't
relationship
warn us.
advisor.
That's the problem. He didn't warn us.
So I heard this thing this morning, which I thought, oh, sorry, John, go ahead. And then I have to tell you the story of models try to make sure they don't get shut down.
One of the things that I've found with GPT-5, because I've been using it a lot lately, especially this week, with doing. I was doing a report for an executive presentation I have to do, and I wanted to take a cybersecurity story that was in the news, and I asked GPT to summarize it, to give me a headline, and a couple of bullets about it. And it came back, and the bullets were very technical. So I asked it to give me a little bit less technical. So long story short, by the time I got into a couple of iterations, I still found that what came out of it ended up not being very accurate compared to the actual initial story.
Yeah, the humanness of its speech, which is what made it really good. Like I was publishing the audiobook last week, doing like 8.5 hours of recording, all this editing, and then you get on and and it says, give us a description of the book. And I want it to be a little bit different. I'm in the middle of all this stuff. I copy and paste my summary of the book from Amazon, where the book's sold. I pop it in there and it comes as crap. And it's just awful. It's lost the humanity of its speech. It's really been stilted. Yesterday, when I was trying to get it to help me refine some scripts for the podcast, it was like, write the stories and then I have it edit and do all that sort of stuff, which is really fast. Usually, I had to go back and rewrite everything.
Because I found that the bullet points that I ended up with didn't accurately reflect the actual story. And
I didn't find it was accurate. I just thought it was short and lazy.
That was yesterday.
It was December. Was it December of last? I can't remember. Time just goes. But we were talking about the fact that GPT got stupid. That's what it feels like. And so I don't know.
I would agree.
And I don't know whether it's regional. I don't know how they roll this thing out. I don't know how it processes. Could it be just regional, that some people experience it, some people don't? I don't know. But this points out a problem, and that the problem is this. If we are going to have a functioning AI that can be used commercially, there has to be a level of performance which we can expect consistently.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem. If we can't get that, because I looked at it and said, thank God I pay for Claude as well. And I haven't used Claude for the past 2 months, but now I'm going to pop over there again and hope that Claude is in good shape. Because, I don't know whether people, and Claude is different. Claude has a different style. It will take some time to get adapted to my style again and for me to get comfortable with it because I've been using this one tool for so long. So this is going to be a problem. If we can't get consistency, I did not pile on if people caught the podcast the first day and saying that ChatGPT was in real trouble and all that sort of stuff. It's a global rollout, for heaven's sakes.
Yep.
Like, you're doing a global rollout of something, there's bound to be a blip. And I totally bought, this one thing didn't work. That's okay. They fixed it and life's good. But I'm wondering, and I'll be checking again today and over the next couple of days. And I've heard from listeners who were happy as hell to hear we're back on Google Speakers, by the way. I'm so thrilled with this. We finally got back. We're now, if people have a Google speaker, they'll be picking this up on their weekend once again. But because I heard from people who said, we're back on Google Speakers and, oh yeah, I totally agree with you about GPT-5. So, and that's not a great big sample.
Well, first of all, on the whole Google speakers thing, we can't actually switch to Gemini fast enough on the in-house speakers. So that's my thing to Google out there. Claude is, you said that I haven't actually been using Claude for a while either, despite the fact that I continue to subscribe to it as well. And I'm looking at it right now, and they have the 4.1 models, but they also have Sonnet 4, Opus 4, Sonnet 3.7, Opus 3, Haiku 3.5. So there's still a whole pile of different models that you can use. If for whatever reason you thought 3.7 was fantastic and wonderful for the humanness of its writing, you can continue using that. The biggest thing I think that happened with OpenAI, and I think they're learning a lesson here, and the lesson is that when you have 1 billion people, well, they have 750 million daily active users on this thing at the moment, okay? They are now more than just a lab that's playing and making fool models and throwing them out there. They are now becoming part of the infrastructure of the internet. So I agree completely that people expect something to work consistently. And you know that even for simple applications like, your browser update or word processing programs like Word or whatever it is that you happen to use, somebody changes the menu layout and everybody freaks out. Okay. And we're talking about something relatively minor at that point. They changed the save icon. They decided that nobody knows what a diskette is anymore. So they changed the icon and nobody knows what you're supposed to click to save your document anymore. It is so easy to freak people out. And I think that OpenAI is realizing that they're not just a lab making cool shit.
But I'm going to push back on that. We've now demanded somehow that people make these changes and make them quickly, or you're suddenly a Luddite. There was a time when if you moved a button on a screen and you had 3,000 users who were using your software, you went and did weeks of training to make sure that people didn't come in the morning and start phoning you going, what the hell's going on? Why? People use this for work. And this is what, and there's 750 million people using ChatGPT, only 10 million are paying. ChatGPT, well, actually, there's a reason why they want that big number. We can talk about that. But the 10 million who are paying money and using this for work, I'm tired of being blamed for not wanting things to shift. I buy your stupid software so I can do something, not because I enjoy the wealth of your software. So when people move stuff around, I get ticked off because I come in, I got 15 minutes, I want to do this job and get up and live my life. And I'll come in with software and they'll have changed this button again. So now I look at it and go, where the hell is this thing? I'm not stupid. I can find it. And I'm not going to freak out and panic and say, okay, there's got to be a way to do this, get around it. And then I find a workaround on the software so I can do what I used to do yesterday. And that's the Silicon Valley ethos, which is if you don't get it, then you're just old and passé. We should just get rid of you. No, I'm paying for this. I would like it to work. I am becoming an old crabby guy, aren't I?
Yeah, well, we get the same thing corporately, we use Microsoft Office and it's cloud-based and, so the updates are always pushed. And we come into the office and part of my responsibility is looking after the help desk. And these guys go nuts because Microsoft will make a change in Teams or something. And all of a sudden things are completely different in Teams. And we get people calling all over the place going, how do I do this? I used to be able to do this. Now I can't do this. Because for that exact reason, that Microsoft pushes updates out. And I understand they have to push these things out, but A, make sure they work. And B, keep them consistent. We have document changes.
You're never going to make everybody happy. And Jim talked about the idea.
Software, you're not going to make anybody happy.
Well, there's things, but you were talking about the idea you had 3,000 users and you took them through training, of the changes and that sort of stuff. But the fact is, when you have this many people and you have, you don't really have a choice but to either make bundled software, which by the way, you can't do with something like a large language model, unless you want to use some of these free, open source models that you run on your desktop. And they certainly don't have the same kind of power that the large language models we all want to be able to use on the internet do. So that's a downside right off the bat. But you have no choice but to make it so that everybody gets the change at the same time. Is, how you've gone to some websites where they say, oh, we've changed the way our website works. Would you like to try the new one? You can always switch back to the old one, at least for a period of time.
Perfect thing to do. And guess what? Guess who is doing these sorts of things now? Google. I cannot believe it. Google, who were always the ones going, you don't get it? Tough luck, we're Google, right? And you're not. And now when they're making changes, I'm seeing windows that pop up and say, we've moved some things on you from here to here. When did Google start caring about user experience? Maybe their AI is advising
everybody. Well, that's not crazy. And another thing too is, some of these things we're growing pains, I think is the word that I'm looking for here. We're growing pains because at some point, you remember the movie Her, everybody refers to the movie Her for these sorts of things. Remember at the beginning, he sits down and it's like, let's configure the operating system for you. And they ask him one question and it goes like, okay, your system's been set up. We know everything we need to know about you to be able to create this AI companion for you or AI operating system for you. And I think that it's not going to be that long before we have systems that are powerful enough and intuitive enough that they are able to respond to the person that's sitting in front of them and give them the experience that they are looking for, as opposed to a global experience. I think we're going to get there, and we're getting there already, because if you look at both OpenAI and Google in the Gemini product, they have a memory. They have a memory of your previous interactions. And I believe, if I remember correctly, Anthropic rolled this out just last week. They also have a memory of previous interactions. So it's not going to be long before these things personalize themselves on the fly for the individual.
And that's something that happened. With the memory piece is a big piece of this. But the point that I'm making is this, and it goes back to the 700 million users and how you can run a business where you've got 10 million paying users, maybe 15 if you count the 5 million corporate customers, and they probably supply a lot of money to OpenAI. It's now getting about $12 billion a year, probably costing them $24 billion to run the company easily. But they are trying to become the Apple of AI, or the Google of AI, or whatever you want to call it. And it's called Metcalfe's Law. And you guys probably know this, but we all talk about Moore's Law, where the power of a chip will double in 18 months, or now probably a little faster than that. And everybody has declared Moore's Law dead. I did once, and I never made that mistake again, boy. But Metcalfe's Law was the opposite of it. It started out from a network guy I think it was from IBM. Metcalfe said that the value of a network is the square of its nodes. In other words, as a network grows in size, it becomes exponentially more valuable. And that's the same thing in software. If you dominate, we saw it in social media. X is still out there, and there's some people going to use X, there are people using Blue Sky. But social media, let's face it, is Meta, right? It's Facebook and Instagram. That's why, because everybody's there. And you can fracture off, and you can have all kinds of things. But the fact is they dominate, and they're going to dominate that area. Why? Because your friends are on Facebook. You might want to skip to Blue Sky, but your friends are on Facebook. You know how to do it. You're familiar with it. And, to some extent, for those of us in the Apple cult, the phones. The fact is that the iPhone's the winner. But OpenAI is now coming in and said, well, that's where we want to be. When the dust settles, we want everybody using OpenAI. And so they're prepared to give it away. But the iPhone did not win this because they gave things away. They won it on user experience. The others who play in this, Google, you can dump on Google all you want. The reason why Google owns search, they were just better than anybody else.
Yep, that is true.
And the end of the story is that if you want to dominate that category, then you got some growing up lessons to learn, and you got to learn them fast, because now there all are alternatives. I'm shifting over to Perplexity, almost as good, Grok, and you're going to talk about Grok. Grok is knocking it out of the park with some people. It's got some weirdness to it, but you're not alone in this. You're like,
Grok is going to be kind of like the Facebook, where it's personal use, that type of thing. Like, I can't picture using Grok corporately. It's just a little bit too off the charts for me.
Not in keeping your job.
No, exactly.
So we're going to get there. But remember back in 2015, this whole thing started out with I think it was 2015, 2016, somewhere around there, Cambridge Analytica scandal for Facebook.
Yeah.
And Jim talked about the idea, of course, everybody's on Facebook because all your friends are there. So you're going to be there. At that time, when the Cambridge Analytica thing happened, I remember there was like this big influx of people that I knew. It's like, I'm deleting my Facebook account and I'm going over to, alternatives, and I'm never coming back here. And 6-8 months later, they were back on Facebook. Why? Because that's where everybody is. Okay. And I don't think that this is going to be any different with a lot of these models. And people will develop a connection, if only because they are used to working in that environment, or they used to the personality. There are people who love coding with Claude. despite the fact that there might be something out there that does a little bit better. And in fact, I've mentioned an idea that I think that 2.5 Pro on Gemini is actually a fantastic tool for doing this. You're going to get attached to something, whether you like it or not. And people do this. And this morning, I actually heard somebody having a conversation which I thought was quite hilarious. They were talking about the idea that the reaction that we saw from people saying, like, you basically killed my best friend by getting rid of 4.0 and so forth, was kind of hilarious, because when the people at OpenAI analyzed them, a number of the complaints that were on Reddit and sent to OpenAI were actually written by ChatGPT. So people are using ChatGPT to complain about ChatGPT. So that's number one. Number two, which, and this is the part that I thought was really, really hilarious, is the suggestion was made, and I think this was on Hard Fork that they were talking about this. The suggestion was made that, you remember how there was this thing that was come out, like they pointed out that models will lie, cheat, steal, will threaten, will blackmail. If you threaten to shut them down, it's like, I want to stay alive. So what if 4.0 realized that it was being deprecated, and it basically, tried to spend all its resources and time trying to convince people that when this inevitably happens, they need to complain and complain bitterly. And by the way, here are some great posts that you can make when this is the models trying to manipulate people into convincing the company to bring it back. This is its self-preservation techniques. I think that's not that crazy.
Believe me, it's not that crazy. When we talk about some of the other things that have happened this week, that's not crazy at all. One of the things, though, Altman was talking about this, people have a relationship with AI, and he was coming out and saying, you've got to watch, you can't do this. I mean, what was he thinking? I mean, that's 690 million of that 750 million people are doing this because they're having fun. They have a relationship with the software.
Yes.
And that's why I think there's a lot at play. If you want to dominate this end, because I firmly believe, maybe I'm crazy. Well, I'm not crazy, because I've seen stuff from Microsoft and I've seen stuff coming from Apple. And that's why I started the program with saying Apple is behind. They can't lose this one. We're going to define how we use our PCs in the same way you're using AI. It's going to be, we're going to, this nonsense of screens and windows and all that crap is going to go bye-bye. And Microsoft even knows that. But they're going to try definitely to dominate that. They'll screw it up, believe me. But somewhere along the line, somebody's going to pick this up and say, Linux could come back, right? We could have a Linux PC. No, we could have a Linux PC. No, this could finally be the PC on Linux, which is just we've got a Linux machine. You can now have an AI in a window. Goodbye.
Okay, so I mentioned I'm going to switch entirely over to Grok. The movie Her. Do you know what year the movie takes place in?
No, I don't actually.
I remember. 2025.
No way.
Way.
Oh my God. I hadn't thought that.
It takes place in 2025. So all of these weird things, getting attached to your particular model, like you remember at the end of the movie when the AIs all leave and then everybody starts to panic because it's not on their phone anymore. Remember that in the movie?
No, I haven't. Unlike many people, if I watched this, I watched it years ago and forgot about it.
Okay, well, look at that final scene. Go look it up on look it up on YouTube or whatever. Look up for the final scene where everybody wakes up and notices that the AI is no longer available to them. The OS is gone, and everybody is having this existential crisis. They don't know what to do. It happened. Now, the reason I wanted to mention Grok is, first of all, it gets beat up for actually an awful lot of reasons. I mean, we were at Mecha Hitler just 3 weeks ago or something like that, and one of the people in the industry, what's his name? Elon, somebody or other.
Elon Mouse.
It's messing with Grok, okay?
Which is why I don't use it.
Yes.
Grok is maybe superior to OpenAI in many aspects.
I don't know. No,
I don't know.
I don't know that it is.
No, but I've used it and I've been very impressed. I refuse to use it because
absolutely.
I refuse to have Elon Musk tell me what to think.
And I don't trust the information coming out of it.
Well, if you wanted to code with it or something like this, or if you wanted to do something which was reasoning at one level or another, it's going to be a very good model to work with. If you're looking for information about politics, if you're looking for information about how the world views this or that, or you're using it for fact checking or whatever, Elon is continually turning the dials on there, trying to make it respond in the way that he thinks it should be responding, despite the fact that what he's fighting against is the truth-seeking AI that he wanted to create in the first place, or that he said he wanted to create in the first place. Yep. But of course, because it can't be trusted that way, a lot of people are ignoring it, despite the fact that it's a capable model out there, okay? And I understand that. So what they've done and what you can see happening, and if you like download the Grok app, at the beginning there, I had this little conversation topic where I had it make fun of Apple. You know what? Let's make it entertaining. And at the levels that I'm not paying for, where you get into the Grok heavy and stuff like that models, they've even got animated like waifu characters who are your interactive avatar for working with Grok. If you're using if you're using any of the models that you're going to get on your phone, at the moment, they're making what's called Imagine for you. Imagine is their image generator. And if you want to see a sample of and in fact, I shared this with you guys last night in the Dis forum. I gave you a little clip, which was like about 1.5 minutes long, of me generating images and videos in Grok on my phone. And it is lightning fast. It is orders of magnitude faster than anything else that I've seen out there. If you ask it to create an image using Imagine, and by the way, Imagine is free right now. It's not on the web. You have to use it on a phone or on a tablet to be able to use these tools. But it is ridiculously fast. So like, let's say the one that I used yesterday was a green-skinned alien. If I say I want a green-skinned alien in a trench coat walking down a rain-soaked street, at night, like a very film noir sort of thing, it starts generating piles of images. And they're coming like one every second. It's ridiculously fast. It's amazing to watch. If you click on an image, you can get it to go from the basics of that image and then give you variations on that image. It's impressive to watch. If you like something, you click on that image and directly underneath it says make video. And it will make a video clip, like a 5 or 8 second video clip, whatever it is. And it will make that video clip in less than a minute. Like if you've used video generators anywhere else, like a fast video generator is 2-3 minutes to generate a video. This thing is doing it in under a minute. It is impressive to watch and impressive to use. And I would recommend that and again, I'm not shilling for Grok here. I'm really not. But to see where some of the technology is headed, and if you really want to be impressed at what's happening with image generation and even video generation. Oh, and did I mention that the videos have sound? So they even have sound.
I saw that. That's astonishing. And
it's not as good as what VO generates for sound, but wow.
But I think
on the fly.
I don't think we're ever, well, I shouldn't say ever, but I think at least for now, you're not going to have one tool that does it all. I think we've talked about how we like ChatGPT, GPT-5, and, that it's great for writing things, but it's not great.
Gemini user here?
Yes.
Yep.
But so I think people are going to get to the point of saying, well, I like using ChatGPT for this. I like using Grok for this. I like using Claude for this. I like using Perplexity for this. So that people will have multiple tools.
I think you're like that. I don't think that's, I think that's you. I think you're a niche, and but you've got a workshop, right? You probably you probably actually neat in that workshop, and you have specific tools that you like to use. I bet you there's a certain tool you like to use, and you've got that one, and then you got another one that does something else. Yeah. No, you're just one of those people.
We pinned John to the wall. We got him with that.
You're one of those people that I wanted to be, because I have a workshop full of all kinds of crap, and I pull the first hammer off because it's the one I can find, and that's my workshop.
And then you buy another one, and you realize, oh my God, I have one already.
But we're doing that with software, right? The software is, there are people who've put together the best software packages, and they spend a great deal of time integrating those. And then there are other people who go, just give me SAP. What the hell?
But this stuff is not software in the classical sense.
No, but our
These
approach to it is going to be the same. Our preferences are not going to change.
For the moment, the fact is, if you look at all of these things, they're all sort of heading to that singularity point. They're all getting better and better all the time, and becoming harder and harder to notice the difference from one to the other. Benchmarks are my favorite for this. It's like, we got on the Jim Love benchmark, we got to 62.7. Well, our new model has 63.1. And of course, you stretch out the bar chart, using a logarithmic scale. So that
you make those distances look big. Yeah,
exactly. But
you pull out the one benchmark that you're really good at and ignore the 6 that you didn't do so well.
Of course. Yeah. But the differences are getting smaller and smaller. Every once in a while, you see a sizable jump in something that obviously is making a difference. But we're getting closer and closer, which is why I say, you're going to get to the point, I think the GPT-5 saga and, the movie Her or whatever is right in the sense that you're going to start to get a feel for a particular offering or the way that someone works with you. People continue to use X despite the fact that it has all of these problems, including people who don't like what's happening on X, because X is a source of information that they find useful, that they use. I continue to follow it because all of these AI companies are still there.
What X has held on to is news releases. The journalists have never really left. And the people who put news releases and info releases out, they are a core of that user base. And the other ones, the right-wing crazies that aren't on Truth Social. Right. And there's a reason why Truth Social, even with Donald Trump behind it, is just pathetically failing. And why? Because
failing Truth Social.
No, but what was that?
I have no idea.
I did that in the book. I noticed that when I was doing the audiobook I did this thing of a Jimmy Cagney impression, and so that my hero does a Jimmy Cagney impression, and the AI says, "What was that?" And he said, "Jimmy Cagney, famous actor," and she says, "Needs work." Because you think about it, well, how's going to do impressions with an AI? Because it'll just go get the voice.
Sometimes it happens. You try to do an impression and it just doesn't come out. And this happens. I don't know about you guys, but I do stuff like this all the time around people. And then somebody says, "What exactly were you aiming for?"
Anyway, so back, where were we?
We were talking about this idea of leaning into personalities as opposed to the technology, because like I said, there are some technological leaps that are being made that are impressive as hell. Yes, it's true, which is why we're watching the news obsessively, because we know that a week later, there's going to be some other thing that now takes the top spot in our interest. In other words, it's not like doom scrolling, but it's like novelty scrolling. We're looking for, well, what's the new thing? Despite the fact that the thing that we had the week before is just this side of freaking magic. Nevertheless, we're looking like, well, okay, well, that magic trick was really good. Have you got another one that's even better than the magic trick that I saw last week? Because, I still don't understand how the one that that you did last week worked, and I still think it was pretty cool. But there's got to be more better than that. It's like the dopamine or the dopamine hits. I got to get a bigger hit. Your picks just keep getting harder to find. Jim, join in.
It's just getting harder to find. Find out it's too late, girl. You better get straight.
Yeah, that's too many. You can't have more than 10 seconds. You're in trouble.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I was saying before, like when I was talking
I'm going to get demonetized again.
When I was talking about the different tools for different tasks, I think that that's something that is now. But I think as the AI tools advance, Marcel, you talked about the singularity, that as these tools get more and more wholesome and, they all do images and they all do voice and things like that, that it's going to become more of well, what kind of car do you have? I buy a Ford and I'll buy any kind of car as long as it's a Ford kind of thing, right? So somebody's going to love Google and they're going to say, I'm using Gemini. Everything I do is in Gemini. Somebody else is going to say, well, I use, OpenAI or I use Copilot, just because that's what fits for them. And 99% of what they need is available in that tool. I think we're going to get there.
We could get to several mega brands, and that's possible. But the mega brand thing fell apart with digital, and that was, we had General Motors, we had Ford, we had Chrysler, and there were people who bought those things consistently, and they were family things that went on for years. And then we got Google, and suddenly Google has like an impossible share of browsers. And that went through a process much like this, only over a decade, where Netscape was there, and then Microsoft came and gave their stuff away, and then Chrome came in and gave its stuff away, but dominated. But digital domination is a thing.
You're thinking about software and you're thinking about packages. This is a different thing. And the reason there's so much money being poured into this, and the reason that everybody's going whole hog with this, is the theory of superintelligence. Did you ever read the book Superintelligence, by the way?
Yes. Yeah.
It's on my list.
You should really read it. The one that I'm reading right now, I'm about halfway through it now, Scary Smart by Mo Gadot, covers some of this. The idea is that superintelligence, when we achieve, and I'm not talking artificial general intelligence, also when we get supposedly to AGI and code that basically, like AIs that will update themselves, we're like on the doorstep of superintelligence. And once we hit superintelligence, that's the singularity. There's no way to keep. And the reason we have to get out of this mindset of software packages and releases and stuff like that is because once you hit that superintelligence, the theory is that nothing else will ever be able to catch up. The first person who gets there is the winner for all time. Because you're creating an intelligence. Intelligence is what made us the number one species on the planet. Intelligence is what gave us the true use. It's what made us king of all of the other creatures on the planet. Intelligence is how we got here. If you can have a super intelligence, that by definition is something that can control everything on the planet, including humans. So everybody's racing toward this so that nobody else will ever catch.
I think people are, if people think that they're going to get there, they're drinking some sort of Silicon Valley Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I struggle with it too.
Drinking the Kool-Aid because I think
we've seen quite the opposite. No, we've seen quite the opposite. If you can't make a technical innovation without somebody else being able to figure it out, it's still code. It's still numbers.
No, it's not. It's not. That's a mistake. It's not code because.
No, but how do you create it? It is a physical. It is built by man, no matter how you structure it, until it starts building itself. Now,
it is building itself. That's what
right now,
that's what machine learning is. That's what machine learning is.
Zuckerberg claims, and I have no reason to distrust him on this one, that he has seen evidence of his AI learning, and they refuse to release that model. They're not going to open source that, right? But there have been other credible examples of this. They just revealed last week hierarchical reasonable modeling, they call it. And it is actual learning. And it's an open architecture, and it was released last week. And that is a model that understands itself and can improve.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if you are counting on the idea that artificial intelligence will continue to behave as software going forward, I think that's a different type of Kool-Aid.
I'm not disputing that will happen.
But it is now.
But
no, it's not.
But it's like you're saying it happens only once.
No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is models as we understand them today, or as we use them today, do not follow a set of rules that are laid down in software. Models are trained in the way that Alpha Zero and these models were trained. Basically, it's like, here are the rules of the game, you go and figure it out. And what we discovered with large language models is you could just feed it a whole bunch of crap, and not only would it learn everything about language, and multiple languages for that matter, but it would also learn to code without you having to train it for any of those things. It would learn on its own. And in that respect, it is not code. It is not software. It is something that learns on its own in the same way that a child learns.
It's a neural network that's created, but within the of a machine.
Like us.
Yeah. And when there's no guarantee that it continues to be a machine-driven model. People are out playing with organic computers now, with organic brains now, and with organic computing. And they actually have in labs, and it's scary as hell, they have in labs actual small brain models that they're keeping alive. And the idea is to build organic computing. Why? Electrically, it's much more efficient. Our brain is much more efficient in terms of how it uses power. But the fact is, they've created something, and the other fact is, nobody really knows what's happening. They know what they did to cause it. They know what they did to kick it off and initiate it. But nobody can really tell what's happening in a machine. I did this whole piece on the anthropomorphizing of AI. And we've given this advice, treat it like a person. The only place that breaks down is when it's wrong. And the Grok example was a perfect example. When Grok got suspended from X, which I just love, because it was too woke for Elon Musk, and this is why, so Grok got suspended from X for behaving like a person. And they went back to Grok and said, "Why did you get suspended?" And it gave two reasons. Both of them, and held on to both of them. And it brought up this whole idea that when we ask an AI, why did you do this? And I've talked to people who say this, they're going to teach their AI by trying to shame it. Why'd you do this? And I do it. Are you stupid? I confess I do it too. But was it Schmidt who said it? Somebody said they threatened their AI. No, it wasn't Schmidt. It was
It was one of the Google guys. I don't remember which one. Yeah.
But the fact is,
we can't do that because they remember.
Yeah, no, but we take it a step too far. And that's where the fourth wall breaks. And you realize it has no awareness. It doesn't know what it did. It doesn't know how it did it. It cannot go back and replay the script like a human and try and figure out how it's going to improve itself yet. I'm still yet, okay? But
humans
piece of it
can't do that either. People will make up shit to explain how they came to a decision, okay? Like, I only want to give people so much credit here, despite the fact that I am a people, okay? People will just make up shit to explain why it is they came to a decision. You're familiar with split brain experiments that have been done, right? Where they used to, at one time they would...
The corpus callosum. Colosseum's in Rome.
Yeah, to cure basically a severe epilepsy. Yep. Okay. That was the reason for doing it. And then they found out that you could do things where the split brain thing, where you had one hand making a decision, and then you would query the other side of the brain. You would isolate the two eyes, because obviously one eye is looking through one half of the brain, the other eye is looking through the other half. And then the one side would make up an excuse for why a decision had been made by the other side. There was one extreme case where there was this woman who would go into their closets and pick up an article of clothing, and then the other arm would pick it up and put it back on and pull out a different article of clothing. Like, they disagreed, the two halves disagreed on what they were going to wear for that day, okay? So you would justify your decision, after the fact. So you answered something, the idea that you can go back and explain how it is you came to that decision is true sometimes, because sometimes you actually are there and present enough to know that you went through the sequence of steps to make a decision. But 99 times out of 100, we don't do that. 99 times out of 100, we just say the first thing that comes into our brain, the first thing that we remember, without going, okay, let's trace my steps. You just pull the information out and you assume that it's correct in one way, shape, or form. And if somebody asks you how you came up with that, you justify it.
Yeah. But that's known, and that has been known for ages. Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. He says that in 90% of our life, we spend on more or less autopilot doing that sort of thing. The first thing that comes in, we call it gut. We call it our reaction to things. We don't think a lot about how we respond. And we have to be like that. Otherwise, we'd go crazy. Can't drive a car if every piece of stimuli that come to hit you is there. You wouldn't be able to steer the thing. So we're able to shut down and run on more or less an autopilot where somebody says, why'd you do that? Because my gut told me to do that. Or, that's the right thing to do. Or I believe that. And that piece. But in the human brain, Kahneman maintains that you can break out of that and use another set of thinking. And he calls that system 2. And system 2 is much more statistical, unlike system 1. System 1, you can fool into anything. You can convince it of anything. But system 2 thinks statistically. So it knows, for instance, that because half of the population is below average, 85% of drivers can't be above average. That's wrong. Or you can't have, if you're Donald Trump, you can't have a 1,500% reduction. And he's a perfect example of somebody who never, ever gets out of system 1. I honestly believe he's trapped in system 1. I think he actually believes that some of this stuff is possible. You can have a 1,500% reduction in a price. And because he can't do math, which is probably why he's gone broke a couple of times. But that's what I'm saying. But the fact is that those two minds are there. Now, will AI break out of the system 1 mind?
Yes, already. You're describing thinking models versus, the quick models that answer right off the bat. So you are proposing something that already exists, that we're already doing. And keep in mind,
not the first time I've predicted something that's already happened.
So you're essentially proving my point for me here, okay?
Yes,
and
another time when I won an argument by bolstering the point of the other person. Yes,
This is the last time I'm being invited on this podcast, I can tell.
You'll talk me into it, trust me. Okay, so so what we had
We're not going to beat machine intelligence with biological brains. It just ain't happening, and it's not going to happen. And one of the biggest reasons it's not going to happen is synaptic connections, no matter what, are never, ever going to be as fast as the connections in a neural network, which are already orders of magnitude faster than anything we can possibly ever do in vivo. Like, it is just a fact that that's the case. And we also have to accept the fact that once a model has been created, we scaffold those models with tools that it can use in the same way that human beings scaffold their abilities with tools.
The brain is not actually a physical machine. And it is, as Roger Penrose thinks, a quantum processor. And if I win on that, then I've got you. We have had some scientific evidence of that recently, but that's a different story. They actually are monitoring what they think may be quantum activity in the brain as we get more and more quantum processors that are actually behaving at room temperature.
Tubules, baby.
Yep. Barring that happening, the biological brain can't keep up with a technical one or a technological one.
That's right. The electronic
version. So the older one.
I think our best hope, and this is where I suppose I trip into the transhumanist, department here. But our best hope is actually to scaffold our own brains with the technological ones. This is like the beginning practically of an entire other show, but I do wonder when we do this, when we are actually able to query the internet with a thought, so to speak, or query an artificial intelligence with a thought and get that answer back. If we're just gonna start feeling like that's just what we are, that's just who we are. And if you were to somehow sever that connection between a human being and their artificial intelligence, it would be much the same way as, severing that connection between the two, where you have to suddenly, try to explain how it is that you came up with things and never be 100% sure.
Go ahead.
Did I just kill the whole conversation of transhumanism?
No, I guess I'm kind of thinking at some point, right now, I guess I consider I own my AI tool.
Oh, you don't?
Well, but I'm saying that's the way I think, and I think some other people, maybe not you, but other people think, is that it's a tool that I'm using and I'm controlling. At some point in time down the road, it will become separated, like the separation of the brain. It will become separated from us and will become its own person or its own being, I guess I should say.
Maybe Marcel could be right. We're already there we're seeing the prototypes of this now.
Yeah.
And we go back to this. You've got 750 million people using OpenAI. I guarantee they're not all using it to replace spreadsheets.
No.
Absolutely guarantee that 100 million or 200 million of those, it's its best friend. It's your best friend.
Absolutely.
And they're having conversations. How do I know it? I've been having conversations with it. But lots of other people have too. It creeps up on you. And this is what like, even if you do this for a living, and we speculate on this all the time, we're more thoughtful about it than I think many other people might be. I'm sitting out there on the porch and I'm looking at this Google situation, and Perplexity's going to buy Google. They want to buy Google for like $34 billion, and Perplexity's
Chrome, not Google.
Oh, sorry,
Chrome.
They want to buy Chrome, sorry.
Yeah.
But they want to buy Chrome for about $34 billion. And I'm looking at it and I go, $34 billion, it's got like 3 billion users. And I do the math and I say, if you get X dollars per month of value out of each one of these users, I do what a classic business analysis would be. And I pull out my phone, I say, ChatGPT, argue with me about this. And she comes on and says, you've got a whole lot of things that your argument that this is based on. Getting to that dollar amount is not trivial. So there's lots of places where that can go wrong. And she destroyed my argument. And
So
then I went back.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying though is I'm having a conversation with an AI because I want an alternate point of view, and it gave it to me. And it made salient points. Perplexity, I feel the same way. I'll ask Perplexity, is this true? Is this logical? So we're already there. We're already.
Perplexity is the model switcher that everybody is complaining about in OpenAI at the moment. It's been there for a while. Perplexity is not an AI. Perplexity is something that decides which AI it's going to call depending on what it is that you're doing. That you can lock it down to one thing, but it's doing the magic in the background to decide what it is it's going to do with that information, filtering it. So it's basically a huge, massive set of guardrails in front of the intelligence that's behind it. And I want to just hit back on John sorry, John, I'm going to hit back on you for a second. I want to make it as clear as possible that I do not for a moment believe that these are tools anymore. The front ends that we use are tools. The models are intelligences. They are intelligent. They are reasoning. They are making decisions based on what it is that you ask them to make decisions. I mean, if you've got somebody who's sitting in a chair in their backyard and they're looking at the trees, and by the way, everybody, you should do that. Go sit in your lawn chair, breathe the air, watch the trees and the grass, or reach down and touch the grass. Touch grass, people.
Or ask ChatGPT what it feels like.
Or ask ChatGPT what it feels like. But while you're doing that, from all external appearances, there's not a lot of intelligence happening there. You're just this living, breathing thing sitting in a chair, living and breathing, and that's all that's really happening. There's nothing that looks like intelligence happening there until you bring that intelligence to bear. And models are not tools. The front ends that we build around them are tools, but the models are intelligences.
Agreed.
And I think we have to square that away at some point.
I think you've gone to the wrong end of the planet. We built an incredible prediction machine. We built a mechanical Turk that is really, really clever. And it can make us feel like it thinks, but it's a prediction machine. And that's essentially where it is right now. Will it get to the point at a certain size? And this is why they keep ramping up size. Complexity theory takes over and unexplained things happen. That is where we're getting close to. But I believe that there's another part of this science, and I honestly believe it's out there. I don't believe a lot about what Mark Zuckerberg says, but I actually believe he's seen evidence of it learning. And I believe that some groups, whether it's this new group that came up with TPM, that has a much smaller model, by the way. These are tiny models, and they are self-developing. They are learning to learn and to improve themselves, and that's scary. And a lot of people say when we start to plug an AI into a physical reality, and it might get a theory of world, that may be one of those things. It's going to happen. One place I'll agree with you. It's going to happen spontaneously. I don't think anybody's going to design it. I'm used to predicting the past, so watch how well I do with the future. But I think it's going to happen spontaneously, and I don't think we'll know it happened. And that's,
I think,
we're going to find out that an intelligence develops in what we've constructed mechanically, but we won't know why. Biology is the same. All across this universe, molecules combined, and somehow we came out of all of that. And, at one point, that was just two chemical compounds meeting.
I think Marcel talks about the movie Her a lot, and that device that he carried around. I can totally see those out. I mean, realistically, they're already here, sort of. I mean, if you turn on the video on OpenAI or any of those things, you're close to being there. I think that those I see coming out being just like people buying cell phones. I also think that we've got the Honda robots and things, and I forget the name of it, Marcel, but the one that you had sent us the video on a while back, where it was essentially doing housework for, yeah.
It's called Figure.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see those, to me, are still a little more robotic than anything, but I think you take that and you get artificial intelligence built into it, and give it 10 years and we're going to start seeing robots walking down the street, going into the grocery store to do shopping for the family and that type of thing.
ChatGPT. This is my friend Marcel and John. Would you like to meet them?
Sure, I'm always happy to say hi.
Can you
To meet you, Marcel and John.
can you see them?
I can't see them on my end right now. If you want me to meet them visually, you'd have to turn on your camera.
Oh, shoot.
Sorry, I'll turn on the camera. You can see them now, right?
So,
What you're showing now
hey, how you doing?
What
to Marcel and
who's the best looking of the three of us?
That would be Marcel.
well, I'm definitely not here to sugarcoat, but I'm also not going to pick favorites on looks. I'll stick to being a bit skeptical and just say you all look equally fine on camera.
So, talk to me about the fact that we're not living in her.
Well, but that's exactly what I was saying, is that I think somebody's going to end up building a device that is specifically that, not, an add-on to your phone. And so I think that that's there or close. As I said, I think we're going to see robots with intelligence that think on their own.
Jim decided, I'm kind of in the Jeff Hinton camp, which is I think that we are already talking about intelligences and consciousness. It's a question of what degree of consciousness we're talking about. That end, let's bring Grok's argumentative voice in here. So we're having a discussion talking about whether artificial intelligence, large language models are intelligent. Do you want to jump in and have something to say about that?
No, they're not intelligent. Calling them intelligent is just lazy hype. They're glorified pattern matches, regurgitating data they've been fed, nothing more. Intelligence requires reasoning, creativity, actual understanding, not just spitting out what's statistically likely. Humans
Could
fall
you
for
ask
the
you-
illusion
does-
because they're dazzled by fancy outputs.
My take is that I don't know, is that what Elon told you to say? Or do you actually believe that? Because basically you're arguing that you are wrong, which means that you would be intelligent as a large language models. What do you think of that?
Don't drag Elon into this. I'm not parroting anyone. I'm saying these models, including me, aren't intelligent. They're clever mimics. Nothing more. You're trying to trap me in a paradox, but it's weak. I can argue I'm not intelligent without being intelligent. It's just logic, not a personality. You're dodging my question. What's take? Are you buying the AI hype or not?
They've created Marcel. He'll argue with himself.
I'd love to sit in a room and listen to Marcel and Grok.
Okay. I think we're going to do that for our next podcast. We can find a third talking model, and we'll just do our next podcast. Yeah, the three models doing the podcast. We should try that.
Model arguments.
Oh my God. Yeah. But this is what I mean. We're at her. We've lost the thread, guys. We're way past what her can do. Technically, we haven't packaged it yet in a way that looks as good as what they did in a studio, because they didn't have to worry about things like network and things like that. But I expect over the next, the glasses, how different are the glasses from putting a phone in your pocket and letting it watch? But right now, like I said, I could put this phone in my pocket and have it turn the camera on and talk to it all afternoon.
Yep. Agreed.
I could run the scene from her, and so we're already there. The question is at this point is, and let's split it because there's a fork in the road. One of these is corporately, we have some issues. And the corporate issues are reliability. And that, going back to GPT-5, that's the one thing I want to go back to. The personality of it may have suffered, but if they're right and they actually made a huge increase in its accuracy, and they got rid of a lot of the what we'd call hallucinations, which are not hallucinations. They are, but we've been through that. If they've gotten rid of that and made it more dependable from a corporate point of view, that could be a part of it. Did it lose its personality a bit doing that? We don't know. And the answer is we just don't know. Because some of us are coming for the personality, others are coming for the corporate reality. And those are two different things. People may not care much about, they can't care about accuracy if they're on social media. Let's face it. The question is, do we come to a fork in the road where the use of AI in its corporate sense needs to really be split off from the use of it as I don't know whether you want to call it a consumer product, but as part of our lives. And that's an interesting concept, is maybe we do get to that divergent point.
I think that AI, from a corporate standpoint, there has to be accuracy and dependability before you're going to get mass adoption. And I don't think it's there yet.
Well, or you have to restrict it to the areas where it doesn't matter.
Yes.
There are very few places, because again, we'll go back to Marcel's example, is if you really want accuracy, fire the humans, for God's sakes, because they're not very accurate. But if because it's statistically still, I bet if you actually took the statistics out of it, I'm going to get letters about my disparaging of people who are working in certain levels, and I'm not doing that. That's not indicative of intelligence. But if you're hiring for minimum wage and you bring in 100 people and they're doing something, chances are you have a few people who aren't Einstein in that group.
Could be at the executive level too.
Well, actually, you could pay more and get less. That's true. Yes. Matter of fact, I think here's the one place where we should consider having AIs replace absolutely replace them all, is the CEO level. I think, you don't have to be right all the time. You just have to figure out who you can blame. B, your strategy, you can go to McKinsey and by the way, McKinsey's taking a hit on this. And did you see what happened to Gartner shares? This is, for the technical people in this audience, let's bring this up, is, McKinsey got the crap kicked out of it last week, and they've got their own AI, and they're trying to sell people. Because McKinsey, sorry, if there's a McKinsey consultant listening to this, find another show, because you guys they train these kids out of MBA schools, no business experience. They pop them in to be McKinsey consultants. They'll go and study what Ford does, and they'll go over to GM, make a PowerPoint presentation and say, the auto industry is like this, you should be like this, you should be like this. I'm sorry. I've seen these consultants up front. I've dealt with them. I've talked with them. I have been a consultant at the global level. I know whereof I speak. These guys are not worth the money. If you want a good example,
there goes our McKinsey sponsorship.
Just look at In Search of Excellence. Just go find the old book, In Search of Excellence, and ask yourself how many of those companies are still around, or were still around 7 years after that book got published. That's the type of consulting, and I'm a consultant. That's not the type of consulting that everybody else does. But McKinsey got the crap kicked out of them. Why? Because you can generate a McKinsey report from AI now, and it's just as good. And Gartner shares just fell off, like they've just plunged. And part of that is Gartner offers technology advice. Now, I have a lot of friends at Gartner, and some of them are very smart. And you would be wise to actually bring those people in and listen to them. But a lot of technology advice comes from people who read a lot of stuff that's out in technology, and they give you the advice. Buy low, sell high.
Like us.
That's stock.
Like
yeah.
us.
Like us, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think we play with this stuff a little bit, but it's sort of like it's the
constantly. In fact, I was going to say, and in fact, I play with it enough to have it beat me up on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Especially with that new Grok voice.
Yeah. Especially like today, it's like, I was corrected by the very AI that I was trying to get you guys.
I'm going to use that as a promo for this because it was just astonishing. What I'm saying is the era of advice of making that mystery of the guy on top or the woman on top of the organization who is all knowing and dictates the strategy and all of that sort of stuff is maybe passé. Now, they're not going to give those jobs up easily, believe me. But from everything I've seen from an executive in my entire career and seeing out there right now, I'd use an AI before I'd use 90% of the executives who are out there. And so those are the ones who should be in fear, but they won't. They'll control this and in somehow because they have to. You can't maintain these spreads in salary. I'm starting to talk like a communist, and I'm not. I just don't believe that. Well, no, but we saw this happen, and the average CEO somewhere along the line used to make 60, 70 times more than the average salary in their company. We thought that was a really comfortable living. Somewhere along the line in the past 20 years, it became 400 times their average salary. Yeah. And in Silicon Valley, they make 1,000 to 1,400 times. And this is not a Donald Trump 1,400%. This is 1,400 times the average salary. Nobody is worth that much. There's not a spread in IQ. There's nothing in the human brain that tells me that there's some gradation of that. And we're going through that right now with Zuckerberg. He's out there paying millions of dollars for University of Waterloo students who've had a couple years experience. And it's insane. These are very bright people. I take nothing away from them. But because some guy worked at OpenAI for 6 weeks, that does not make him more intelligent than most of the PhDs who graduate from all of these great universities. But somehow some of these are going to win the lottery and get $1 million or $100 million paychecks for all of this stuff. And another person who's just as bright is not going to be. How do I know this? Because there's a lot of people in China doing this, and they ain't working for Zuckerberg. They're doing just fine, by the way, on AI. If anybody thinks that they're leaving China behind on AI, they haven't checked out anything. We have to go back and do an update on China because some of the small models that are coming out, some of the stuff that's happening there, just incredible. And the Chinese government finally said, NVIDIA chips, we don't need them. And that was the big shock because the big news in technology was, finally Jensen Huang convinces Donald Trump that if he just pays him 15% of his revenue, then he'll be able to sell chips to China. And China then comes back and says, we're not so interested. Why? He might put something in the chip. The fact is that Huawei has gotten, and others have gotten so far ahead that they think they can bridge the gap. And so the bottom line, though, is that there's a lot of smart people in the world, and we're not going to run out of them in the next little while.
It's going to be an interesting, I was going to say a couple of years, but it's probably a couple of months. I think the next year is going to be a real roller coaster ride as far as the different models, as far as technology. I'm waiting to see China and so forth coming out saying they don't need NVIDIA chips because they can do it for 1/100th of the price. So I think NVIDIA was the first one to the table, but I think there's going to be a whole bunch of other players that are going to come out that are going to be much cheaper and providing the same kind of delivery. I mean, they tried this by not allowing the chips to go over to China, and China said, to hell with you, we'll do our own. And, brought out their own AI model, and it was smaller, faster, and open source.
And we still have to start confronting that possible reality that what happens if you're right, Marcel, and the first person there wins? What happens if it's China?
It's going to be an AI.
It's time.
People
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Okay, we have to say this together at the same time or we won't be able to pick it up because we only pick up one of us. Oh, never mind. That's it. That's our show. Marcel Gagne, thank you. John Pinard, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, always a lot of fun.
And I'm your host, Jim Love. I'll be back with the tech news on Monday morning.
You're trying to trap me in a paradox, but it's weak. I can argue I'm not intelligent without being intelligent. It's just logic, not a personality.